And to talk about Prime Minister Modi's visit to Russia, joining me is Dr. Rajan Kumar from School of International Studies, JNU. Good evening and welcome, sir. Now, Prime Minister Modi and President Putin are going to engage at the annual India-Russia talks. It's taking place after a gap of about 3 years, the 22nd edition. How do you see the scope and importance of it, especially in the current geopolitics?
Shubhendu, thank you for having me here, and I think this is extremely important. And this was a kind of the kind of disruption that had taken place between the annual summit meeting between the two countries. So that was kind of that created some issues, at least in Moscow, where some of the people in Moscow started writing, talking that probably India is not prioritizing its ties with Russia. And that's the reason they were giving that annual meeting between the two countries were not taking place since 2021. The last meeting was in 2021. But this visit of Prime Minister Modi will send a very important message to Russia in assuaging their apprehensions and reaffirming India's commitment to its ties with Russia. This is also his first visit in the sense that after third term, when he became the Prime Minister, so this is a first visit to a foreign destination for bilateral meeting. Earlier, he had gone to this Italy, but that was for multilateral summit. So from that perspective, this is extremely important. There are a number of issues which are going to be discussed, but the most important is that they'll start from where they left off in 2021. And as you know, that India's ties with Russia are very comprehensive, and we have, you name one area, and we are cooperating in that area, right from defense, now economy, then there's cultural ties, and also space cooperation, nuclear cooperation. So every area, we have very strong cooperation, and we also have very special kind of relationship, which is known as a special and privileged partnership. India does not have that kind of partnership with any other country in the world. Also, the annual summit meeting that we are talking about, that summit, India, there are only 2-3 countries with which India has that summit kind of cooperation. One is Russia, the second one is Japan. So that kind of demonstrates the relationship that India has with Russia. In this particular visit, as far as issues are concerned from India's perspective, I think the issue of trade is very important, because we have a trade of now roughly 65 point something that you showed in your program,
yes.
$65 billion. But out of that, only India exports only $4 billion. So there is a trade deficit of roughly $61 billion. How do you pay back to Russia? So there are several options. One is that Russia can invest part of that money in India. Thus, India will insist. The second is that Russia should also buy more products from India, because what we're exporting is very less compared to what we're importing from Russia. So that issue is again important, and probably they'll also be talking about paying in national currency. For instance, at the moment, Russia wants India to pay in the hard currency, which is dollar, euro, or it also says sometimes Chinese currency, which is renminbi. India would like to pay in the local currencies or through the barter mechanisms. So
right.
That is one important issue. The Russia-Ukraine war will definitely be discussed because that war has impacted not only Russia and the neighboring countries, but the entire global South. And because of that, the fertilizer prices have gone up. Because of that, the energy prices have gone up, and countries of the global South are suffering. So Prime Minister Modi will definitely raise this issue. My hunch is that he'll not push too much on ceasefire because India believes at this moment that probably the milieu is not very conducive to talk about the ceasefire when NATO is having a summit in Washington, which is coinciding with tomorrow's meeting, and they're planning to fund Ukraine again. They're also trying to provide lethal weapons to Ukraine. And as you can see from today's report, the crisis between Russia and Ukraine is escalating. Russia has several attacks on Kyiv and a number of other cities. But that issue is important. Maybe they'll not push for some kind of ceasefire, but again, Prime Minister will emphasize the importance of dialogue and diplomacy.
And Dr. Kumar, because you're talking about the Ukraine conflict, there's an issue of Indian military recruits in Russia, the issue that would need resolution. Do you see that featuring in an important way in the engagements?
Oh, of course, without any doubt. From India's perspective, that issue is very important because they are our citizens, and we have a policy not to allow our citizens to become, join military in other countries. And this issue was raised during by External Affairs Minister earlier and a number of other forums. Prime Minister will definitely raise this issue, and let me assure you that that Russia will take this issue very seriously. If there are 20 people, who are supporting the Russian army in some ways, that will not make any difference for Russia. So Russia will definitely, take this issue very, very seriously and ensure that Indian citizens are not duped or not, recruited in the army, because we do not have that kind of policy. Unfortunately, some of the soldiers were killed also during the fight, and that was very unfortunate. But yeah, this issue will definitely be discussed during the meeting of the
Right, Professor Kumar, also it is said that in international diplomacy, a lot can be read through body language. The very initial visuals of engagement of Prime Minister Modi and President Putin is a warm hug between the leaders. How do you see the manner in which the two leaders take forward on their shoulders the relationship between the nations?
Normally, such hugs are done for the optics, and they're important from the optics perspective. But this particular hug is very important in communicating a very strong message, not only to Russia, but to the entire world. This message, which is being communicated through that hug, that India remains committed to Russia. India will not sacrifice Russia under any pressure, under any circumstances. Yes, we want a very peaceful resolution of the conflict, and we are not taking any sides. But Russia figures very prominently in India's strategic calculations, and this hug actually conveys that message to the world that India will not back out so far as India's ties with Russia are concerned. Yes, we will not supply weapons to Russia. Yes, we do not recognize some of the territories which have been annexed by Russia, and so but. We stand with Russia as far as our bilateral ties are concerned, as far as economic ties are concerned, cultural ties are concerned. So, that is the message which is being communicated through the handshake and through the hug that you saw between the two. Also because, but this Prime Minister Modi has met President Putin 16 times earlier in the last 10 years, and this was 17th. Had it not been disrupted, so probably he would have met, more than 20 times. Disruption happened because of COVID and later because of the Russia-Ukraine war. So, he has a very personal camaraderie I've seen. He respects Putin a lot. And also, let me tell you, Putin respects Prime Minister Modi a lot. And when they're elected in the new term, so, they make it a point to congratulate each other as quickly as possible. So, they share a personal camaraderie, and that reflects in the hug that you're talking about.
And talking about the warm relationship between the two nations, Dr. Kumar, does the evolution of Russia-China relationship and India-US relationship also have a bearing on the manner in which India-Russia go ahead together?
I think in my view, what explains the reason of the timing of this visit and also the urgency of this visit, as you know, this visit was not planned, and just a few days back, the Prime Minister decided not to go to Shanghai Cooperation Organization, but he is visiting Russia. So, there is a clear messaging there that we say that we do not want China to be the dominant power which start dominating Russia. Russia, we understand the limitation, and we understand the concerns of Russia today, because Russia has been isolated, so it does not have too many choices, and China becomes a kind of compulsion. Having a good ties with China is Russia's compulsion. But at the same time, we also want to ensure that China should not start dictating Russia so far as Russia's ties with India are concerned. So we want to have that kind of balance. So when India is negotiating with Russia, it is not just India is balancing the West with its ties with Russia. India is also trying to balance its ties with China.
Dr. Kumar, I'll just put you on hold for a moment. There are visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi alongside Russian President Vladimir Putin, both the leaders taking a walk together and having a chat. It's a special welcome by Russian President Vladimir Putin at his country home on the outskirts of Moscow. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin taking a walk. Those visuals coming in from Moscow. Prime Minister is on a two-day visit to Russia for the India-Russia annual talks. And there are those visuals of the two leaders having a conversation over a walk. The venue is Moscow. Russian President Vladimir Putin is hosting a private dinner for Prime Minister Narendra Modi at his country home on the outskirts of Moscow. It's an opportunity for both the leaders for a direct conversation away from the media glare. And those visuals coming in from Moscow. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on a two-day visit to Russia. On the agenda, our engagements in the area of energy, security, trade, investment, health, education, culture, and tourism. Dr. Kumar, as we play these visuals, if you can also take us through the importance of the key areas of engagement between the two countries when the leaders hold talks on Tuesday.
Isolated from the West, and Russia is looking for, Russia is trying to send a narrative to the entire world that although it's not having, this trade and negotiation with the West, but Russia has a very strong relationship with the countries of the global South. And the countries which matter in the global South, say for instance, China, India, South Africa, Brazil, so they are very sympathetic to the Russian cause. And they know that the war has been started NATO has played a role in that inception of the war with Ukraine. So, but these countries are very sympathetic. And let me tell you that why this visit is very important from Russian perspective, because earlier we have seen that Xi Jinping visited Moscow, a couple of times, maybe twice in the last 2 years or something. And then the President Putin also visited China, twice. But this is a democratic leader. Prime Minister Modi has been democratically elected from a democracy which is the biggest democracy in the world. So from that perspective, it validates the regime of Putin. And Putin was looking for this kind of opportunity. And I think, the reason why the Prime Minister chose Russia as the first destination, because probably the request came from none other than the President that, that India should visit and resume the dialogue which was disrupted after 2021. So about the issue that you were talking about from India's perspective now, in my view, the most important issue is the trade deficit with Russia that we have today. This was not the case earlier because just a few years ago we had only a trade of roughly $10 billion. But today we have a trade of $65 billion. And as I said, that India is having an export of only $4 billion. So how do you pay to Russia? And that's an issue. And we would like to export much more than paying just in hard currency. So that is one issue to be discussed. We'll also expect Russia to, because Russia is getting so much of this trade money from India, so we'll expect Russia to invest some amount of that money in India. And as you showed in your figure, that we already have a bilateral investment of roughly $30 billion. But I think there's a lot of scope for investment by Russia in India. So that is second issue which is going to be discussed. One important issue related to India-Russia is this issue of this what you call defense supply of defense spare parts. As you know, that we import a lot of products from defense products from Russia, and even today, Russia is one of the biggest exporters. Although we have diversified in the last few years, where United States, Israel, and France, etc., they are supplying a lot of weapons. But even today, Russia remains the most important partner, defense partner of India. So we would like a timely kind of supply of spare parts. We understand Russia's issue because of war. Russia is not supplying on time, but we'll expect that we also have our security needs. So we'll insist that Russia supplies some spare parts to India, which we need. The third issue that definitely we discussed is the issue of the defense cooperation. Nuclear cooperation. And as you know that the Prime Minister Modi tomorrow could be visiting one center, as it was shown by your reporter, that is called ATOM. So ATOM, it kind of showcases the cooperation, the evolution of Russian nuclear program. And in that, India-Russia nuclear cooperation is very important, as you know. In Kudankulam, the Tamil Nadu nuclear, we have nuclear reactors. One and a third is the two nuclear reactors which are already operational. But there are several other nuclear reactors which need to be operational. This will take time, so we'll talk about that. Maybe some of the MOUs can be signed about that. We'll also talk about the space cooperation. As you know, that India has a very strong space cooperation with Russia, so that is another issue. And beyond that, because we are also cooperating in the field of culture now. I can see my university. A lot of students are visiting Russia today. In different places, very frequently. So Russia has started inviting a lot of students from India. But now, partly because Russia has been kicked out by the West, so Russia has started focusing on countries of the global South, in which China figures very prominently, and India also figures very prominently. So cultural ties are one of the issues. that the two leaders will discuss. How can we enhance cooperation? And I can tell you that in our university, every month we have several visitors from Russia, because now they cannot visit the Western country. So, they want very strong cooperation with universities in India. So student exchanges between the two, educational exchanges, that issue will certainly come up in the discussion of the two countries. So in my view, India-Russia ties are very, very comprehensive. I think it's a very unique relationship. No two other countries, not even Russia and China have that kind of relationship. Let me tell you. Yes, strategically they are very important, but also there is a kind of divergence of interest as far as Russia and China are concerned. But in the case of India and Russia, there is not much of divergence of interest. We agree on the issue of multipolarity, for instance, that we want the world to become remain not unipolar, not to become bipolar, where United States and China become important, but we want the world to be multipolar. And Russia, we agree with Russia. Our interest converges with Russia on the issue of multipolarity, and that's an important aspect. And Russia has also been very supportive of India's entry into some of the international institutions like Security Council and nuclear supply groups, etc. So there are multiple areas of convergence of interest where the discussion would take place. And as you pointed out in your program, that we have a very institutionalized partnership. That what it means is that even if there is a change of politics, there is a change of leadership, if you have those institutions, so they will be sustained. And as I said, the summit level annual meeting. India, it takes place, only with few countries. India has only 2 or 3 countries with which India has that kind of partnership. India also has a 2+2 partnership, started very recently, where the defense minister and the foreign ministers meet very regularly. And apart from that, India is cooperating in this multilateral forums. India is cooperating in BRICS with Russia. G20, although President Putin could not come in the last summit that we held in Delhi in G20 meeting, but we also cooperate in G20. Also, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, as you know,
right?
Russia, China, India also have trilateral. This word is called RIC, etc. So there are multiple forums where both India and Russia are cooperating bilaterally, trilaterally, multilaterally. So it's very, very institutionalized kind of partnership that we have with Russia.
On that note, thank you very much, Dr. Rajan Kumar, for joining us in the News Hour and sharing your perspective.